what's up, everyone? Let me know that you can hear and see me. I was having a little bit of an issue with the YouTube live stream letting me go live, which is why I'm like a minute late. So just let me know that you guys are with me. I see a few folks on here. Miguel, thanks, man. John, good to see you. Michael, how's it going, man? Hope Nashville's staying nice and warm and safe. And or are you guys locked inside like the rest of us? Paul, hey man, everything's good here. Practice. You got it, Michael. Ray, good to see you on here, man. DC, yeah, I think you guys are having quite a time these days also. Glenn, thanks for joining us today. What's going on, everyone? So this is going to be our advanced group class. I did mix things up a little bit this time. Usually, this is only available to the premium members of our study group, our Melodic Triads Study Group. We have our standard version, our premium version. The standard version is free. If you're not already with us and don't know what's happening, you can always check out our website and join the standard membership for free if you want. But I just figured since everybody's kind of locked in these days and has way too much time on our hands, that I would just shift things and move things around a little bit and open this up not only to our standard members. Usually it's only available to premium, but we have hopefully some standard members with us today. And then I also just kind of kept this public on YouTube. So if anyone on here is not at all in the study group, I'm going to try and explain things as I go. But usually these group classes is just me showing how I practice the material that is already available to our study group members. So if I say anything that doesn't make sense, let me know in the chat box and I'll do my best to try and keep up without kind of losing the momentum and the purpose, which is just to talk about practicing. David, your first advanced class. How is that possible? I think this will be a fun one where I want to talk about triad pairs. In fact, I think it was Sean that recently was asking if I could delve a little bit deeper into some of the different ways that I think about and take advantage of triad pairs beyond just running, Right here's an E major 7. So the standard, that would be like sort of a standard application. Tommy, how's it going, man? Good to see you on here. Thanks for joining us. Justin, hey. Everything is loud and clear from breezy breeze in southern Indiana. Right on, man. Glad you could join us. So the standard approach to triad pairs is, you pick two triads, you move back and forth through them, usually single notes, arpeggios. It's a great technique to know. I personally get a little bit bored with it. It just feels very, it gets us outside of scalar playing, so it doesn't sound like we're running scales anymore, which is a nice break. Those of you who know me, who are part of the study group, know I'm always looking for ways to not sound like I'm playing scales. But you also know that we have specific techniques to help us accomplish that and to get into lyrical phrases really quickly and easily. And so I don't need triad pairs to accomplish that for me. And they just sound very the same. Like every time you use them, it's just the same. It's like a neat trick. It's like an explosion in a movie. It's like, okay, that's neat, but I want something more than that. So so I have a few different techniques. We'll talk about them. We'll start with the basic one, which is present in this month's PDF. So we're doing major 7 this month. So maybe just so that I can have this nice low 6 string, I'll probably stick with the E major 7 for right now. Okay. So Stephen, how's it going, man? Good to see you on here. So one of the biggest differences between traditional triad pairs versus the way we use them in melodic triads is that these are not two equal codependent triads. This is a melodic triad, a stable triad, and a tension triad. So it's more of that Barry Harris type method where you have stability, tension, right? Resolution, tension, resolution, tension. We're going to mix these up as we go through the next couple of hours, but that's the starting point. So for E major 7, for any major 7, the in triad, the melodic triad is T3. It's triad built on the 3rd of the chord. So for E, that's E, F sharp, G sharp. So it's a G sharp minor triad. And then our tension triad is a half step above it. G sharp minor, up a half step is A major. Okay, so this is a good way to just get started. Just mess around with keeping this open E string vamping. And you should not only be looking for these triad shapes, but really important to be listening and really paying attention to how resolved the G sharp minor feels and how much the A major triad wants to move. It wants to go back to G sharp minor. Right, that's just 2 inversions of A major. 7-7-6, 7-6-5, and then resolving back to G sharp minor. So this is not a chord substitution. I'm not thinking of putting an A major chord on top of an E major 7. This is just E major 7 up here, but I know that the A major will help me create a little bit of internal tension. It's almost like an internal 5-1, dominant tonic, tension resolution. Okay. Let's explore for a second. Let's just try some things out before we move on to any other triad pair techniques. I'm going to stick with this as a technique of just basic back and forth movement over a root note. But let's just see what happens if we do spread triads, open triads. Okay, an open triad, if you're not already familiar, we have 1, 3, 5. So when we take that middle note and we drop it down an octave. You could also raise it up an octave. It doesn't matter. They're just inversions of each other, but it's taking the middle note and moving it either up or down an octave. So going to start with the inversion with the D sharp on top. So the B note is under the D sharp, but I'm going to drop that down an octave. Right, 4, 4, 6. But I'm going to take that middle note and drop it down an octave. And then I'm going to move up to A major. We can also finger it like this. That might be a little bit easier. Gives a little bit of a different effect. It's kind of like the same sound, but it's just less dense. It's a little bit more airy. Where am I at? G sharp minor. Paul, are you on here? This is just like what we were talking about. Was it yesterday when we met up on Skype? Except we're not moving through like circle of fifths or chromatic. It's just back and forth with triad pairs, but it's these same shapes that you and I were just talking about. Okay, now we can take that, just these two first initial ideas, and we could just try moving it to a new key. As soon as we move it to a new key away from E, now we have to control the root note also, which is going to present a whole series of challenges. The E note is great for getting started on the guitar with harmony because it gives us the opportunity to have the root note covered. So if I was playing in a group with a bass player and the root note's covered, then I don't really need to play it. I can, but I don't need to. So this is kind of imitating that idea. Right, as soon as we move to a new key, that's no longer possible for us. Hey, Kurt, what's going on, man? Great to see you on here. Hope you're feeling well. Cool, right on, Paul. By the way, I'm going to keep going in a second, but quick update announcement. The little pay what you want discount thing that I've been running on boot camps and Skype lessons, that's all still running. I'm going to kind of play it by ear. There's no specific expiration date. I want to see how the pandemic's playing out and how musicians are doing. So if you're not already in the premium study group, if you're in standard and you want to upgrade, I put down below the video the discount codes if you want to pay what you want, 10% off, 50% off, 90% off, whatever. That's good just for the first month. And if you're watching on YouTube and not a part of our study group at all, you can join the standard membership for free and start hanging with us, or you can join premium with a pay what you want for the first month. Anyways, let's talk triads. So let's just see what happens if we move, let's say, to C major. Okay, so I'm going to try and hang on to this C note, and I'm going to look for this triad pair and how it falls sort of within this position. Right, so I'm seeing this. I'm seeing this E minor. That F might actually be even easier up on the top 3 strings. There's another E minor. There's another F major. Okay, so that's like a nice little movement that's all within a position. So I can actually sit on this C note. Right, that's F major, E minor. It should look just like a straight ahead C major 7 when we play it now. probably know what I'm about to say. Next step is I'm going to take that and just move it through the circle of fifths. That's like, generally speaking, once I find anything, I'm just going to move it through the circle of fifths because I love it. So if you can't move through the circle of fifths yet, or if it takes you a while, nobody's born with the ability to do it, except for maybe Bach. It just takes a little bit of time and effort. It gets easier the more you think through it. Say the names of the root notes out loud as you move. So here's C major 7. Now I'm going to play C dominant 7, which is going to set. So whatever the root chord is that I'm playing, C major 7, I'm just going to turn it into dominant. That's going to resolve me into the next key. So now I'm in F major. And you might need to kind of stop. Here's F dominant to B flat. You might need to stop and kind of look at the shapes in each position, and at least the first couple, and like spend some time rebuilding the geometry. Once you get used to seeing how the geometry moves, it gets easier to do that. But if you're still getting comfortable with the idea of transposing to different keys, this can be very time consuming. Okay, I'm kind of skipping over those steps, but I've put in lots of time on those steps myself, and you might need to. Right, that time I went to the tritone sub. I went from E flat major 7 to A7 instead of E flat dominant. That's E flat 7 versus A dominant. Tritone sub away. Okay, I'm going to step back for a quick second and show you. I just did something very subtle that was different, but it's important to be aware of it and to learn to think this way, because exercises and very sterile environments like this are helpful for practicing, but we really want to get used to music making. So when I played, when I switched from the E flat major 7 to E flat dominant to A flat major, I used the tritone sub instead, and that forced me to do something that I had to think on my feet and just figure out without having pre-planned it. And that was this. If I played the straight ahead E flat dominant there, you can always do 5-1. It's a big jump, right? It's not good voice leading. If you think of voice leading as just making the smallest movement possible, it's a big jump. But moving fifths like that, especially down a fifth, is always perfect. Like, let's listen to any bass player, right? 5-1. That's great voice leading. But I didn't play E flat dominant. I did the tritone. I did A dominant. And if I jump from A natural up a major 7 to A flat, that would be pretty quirky. I mean, it's justifiable-ish, but it doesn't sound smooth at all. Like, it loses the really subtle stuff that makes something feel and sound organic, like it's alive. Because those of you who are with us and hang with me a lot, you know, tension and resolution, notes have a desire to move in certain ways. Not everything is democratic here. In fact, there's kind of nothing democratic here. This is a complete dictatorship. That A natural does not naturally want to resolve up a major 7. it wants to resolve down a half step, right? It's setting up the key of A flat. So you could almost think of this as like a tension flat 2. It's the flat 2 of where we're headed, and it just wants that tiny little beautiful half step descending resolution. That's so much smoother than, they're both A flat notes, but one is more right than the other. This is one of those things that's like difficult to grapple with on the guitar because we don't see it laid out the way it is on the piano. On the piano, it's like right there. It's so easy. For us, it's not right there. And because everything I'm doing is starting on the root note on the 5th string, you might automatically jump. It's important to start to learn to think about how the notes really want to move. So I gave the resolution that I knew that note wanted, and then I jumped up. Okay. Might seem like a silly, subtle point, but great music is made by lots and lots and lots of silly, small points done perfectly, added on top of each other. That's what makes something sound beautiful versus okay. Okay, so we're at A flat major. That time I can jump straight for it. I went to the tritone again, D7. And even though it's a physical jump, it's the same pitch as if I just resolved down one fret. So here's D flat major. Right? Maybe I'll use a different type of chord to move from one to the other. So here's D flat major. Thank you, Glenn. Couldn't agree more. So we're headed to G flat major, but we need to do it up here. So let's just mix things up a little bit. I'm going to use it F diminished to get there. Again, I'm just looking to make things more musical, and it's not about playing the exact same chords every time. It's about thinking about what chords can take us where we want to go, right? I don't really care what the real book says is in measure 2, beat 3. Like, what's happening on the downbeat of the next measure? If the downbeat is G flat major, then I can use any chord that will naturally take us there. So here's D flat major 7. Here's F diminished. And that resolves me into G flat major, my next key. Right, here's B major. Okay, so we had some open string issues down here, and I had to change my position. This is A major for those of you who are following along. D major. G major. That brings us all the way full circle back to C major. Okay. That in and of itself, for many, all of us, might be a little bit of a challenge. Might take some time, but it's a great thing to start doing to learn to, like, this is triad pairs, but we're not just trying to improvise and make hip sounding lines. We're really just thinking about harmony, right? Creating stable harmony versus tension. And it's almost sort of like a miniature chord scale in a sense, but it's just a 6-note scale. And you can use this in tiny little bits. Like if the chord only lasts 2 beats per measure, you might want to just play something that could be enough. Right, that was D minor to G dominant to C major, but I threw the F triad in on the downbeat of the C major and then resolved it. If you're playing a tune like I'll Remember April, where you have 4 bars of G major 7, I can guarantee you if you're comping for someone and you're just playing every time those 4 measures come up, that soloist is going to start to not pay attention to you. They're going to start to get a little bored. You know, it's like having a conversation with someone who doesn't say anything except they just keep saying, yep, 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 yep. You know, it's important to be able to do that, but we also want to be able to bring a little bit of excitement to the conversation. Right, so that was just me vamping on the B minor and C major triads back and forth. And then I went to a dominant chord and resolved back to G minor. So we can create a lot of movement, whether we have a short period of time or a lot of movement if we have 2 measures or 4 measures, or if we're playing something modal. Really powerful way to use this stuff, right? If I remember correctly, Sean, you were asking about this next thing, which I plan on doing next because it's the second application that I mention every month in our PDF. I want to go farther than our PDF usually takes this stuff, but I do talk about this in the PDF, which is the exact same thing, but we're just going to leave 1 note out. So we're going to play triad pairs, but we're going to execute them as dyads. So 2 notes from each triad. So you can either choose to ignore the bottom note and just play the top 2, or you can choose to ignore the top note and just play the bottom 2. It yields the same results. It's really based on like what you're most comfortable with, wherever your mind goes and however you visualize the fretboard. So as an example, let's go back to E so that we get our 6th string. So if I'm thinking up on the top 3 strings, let's just stick with these 3 triad shapes right now. G sharp minor with the 4th fret on top, 4 4 4, 5 5 6, and 7 9 8. That's G sharp minor, A major, G sharp minor. So I can just ignore the 3rd string and just leave it out. Now I'm dropping those inversions down to the 2nd string set. Okay, all of a sudden it starts to sound not really like triad pairs because we're not playing 3 notes. So it's sort of a very deceptive way of taking a concept, actually making it a little bit simpler. Like there's less happening, there's fewer notes. And in doing so, it opens it up to sound like something different than what you're expecting. Like I started off saying that I kind of get tired of the sound of triad pairs. As soon as I hear this, it doesn't sound like, it doesn't have that same quality to me anymore. It's similar to if we moved through, let's say, the E major scale, harmonizing in thirds. But what's really intriguing about it, what I like more about it, there's two things. First of all, we still have tension resolution built in. With the diatonic scale, it's much more democratic, like everything is kind of equal. And we're implying lots of different chords when we do that within the full 7/0 diatonic scale, right? This is kind of implying E major, F sharp minor over E major, which is sort of like a sus sound. That just sounds like E major again. But each one of these is kind of implying one of the 7 chords, whereas what we're doing is we're implying E major 7 and the tension, the internal tension of an A major triad over it. Like it never feels like we're fully leaving it. We're creating tension and resolution, but we're not leaving the basic chord. And the other thing that I love about it is that the intervals are constantly changing. If you harmonize the scale in thirds, you're either playing a major third or a minor third. Right? Major third, minor third, minor third, major third, major third, minor third, minor third, major third. If you do what I'm talking about of just playing G sharp minor and A major back and forth, but leaving one note out, then here are the intervals we get. Minor third, major third. Major third, minor third. Perfect fourth. Perfect fourth. Back to minor third. Major third, major third. So we have 2 perfect fourths that just kind of pop up out of nowhere that we're not really quite expecting. So let's take that much right there. So I'm kind of starting off with, you guys who know me know the left hand, right hand of the piano player, right? I'm going to start off with a little simple left hand arpeggio to set up the sound of E major 7. And then I'm going to come in with my melodic triad, my right hand, and I'm going to do this little dyad. So the left hand is root 5th, major 7, root. Let's go ahead and throw the major third in too, just to round it out. So it's a full octave of 1, 3, 5, 7, which you know I don't talk about much and I don't take advantage of much, but it has its place in melodic triads. It's just outlining the left hand, the basic harmony, right? 5th, major 7th, root. Glenn, I totally agree. It's a lot more linear. And again, that comes back to the fact that it's built on tension and resolution. It's not built on diatonic notes and, you know, 7, like cramming all of our 7 diatonic notes in. It's just about, here's the triad that creates the most stable organizational system for major 7. And then here's this other triad that takes us temporarily away and then brings us back, away and back. For those of you guys who study the Barry Harris method or even tangentially aware of it, it's literally the exact same thing he does, but he bases it on 4-note chords. He bases it on the 6th chord and the diminished. And I just prefer to do it all with triads. So it's the in triad, the melodic triad, and then the tense or tension triad. Move that through the circle of fifths. See if I can do this. So there's E dominant, A major 7. I'll resolve to our shell voicing, just a straight. Right, now I'm going to hit the A dominant. That's going to resolve me to D major 7. D dominant, that's going to resolve me to G major. G dominant, C major 7. C dominant to F major 7. F dominant to B flat major 7. Now I'm not going to play it. Can I do it down there? Yeah, I can, because before we were going underneath, behind the shell voicing to get some of our triad notes, and now I'm not. So it actually works totally fine down here. Great sound. Headed to E flat major 7. I'm going to use D diminished to get there. Okay, headed to A flat. D flat to G flat. B major 7. To E major 7. Okay. If you're struggling with this, that's okay. Just take notes of the different, think about the process I'm using. Don't get too stuck on the details if you're having a hard time keeping up with it. Just think about all the little baby steps I've taken to get to here, and then trying to implement different elements of those, right? We started with just the triad pair, just with the open E string. Then I forced myself to learn to play the whole triad pair, moving back and forth in a position. Then I got rid of one note, and now I'm moving through a position. Then I added that little left hand, quote unquote, left hand arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, 7 arpeggio in. Okay. It's just about trying to create movement and interest and harmony. Here's D major 7. We're almost to the end of this. Right? Something that's more fun to listen to than just playing that and just sitting on it and not doing anything with it. That's G major 7, and that brings us back to C major 7. Sergio, yeah, the price has changed around a little bit over the last couple of years. It's changed and evolved, as has the content that we share in the group. We still have a free version And since you're bringing up price, we have the standard version, which is free if you're not already in it. And if you are in it, or if you're not in any membership, I do put out some to below the video, including the fact that 50% of any money that comes in, any profits that come in through the discount codes that are included, I'm using to donate to musicians to help people out, because this is a tough time. So I feel really fortunate that I've been able to, and our group has been able to help some musicians right now, because I know a lot of people have lost all their income, which is tough. Yeah, no worries, Sergio. I just wanted to point that out. There's also 2 courses, 1.5 courses that are available in premium that are not yet available outside of premium. Like, you can't even buy them yet. One of them's basically done, and the other one I'm releasing slowly in beta testing with our study group, the 251 course that we're working on right now. So this is a great way to loosen up the obviousness of triad pairs. Let's take this technique. Well, let's take this and run with it. There's a couple different directions we could go. Let's add a melody note on top. Back to E. So E major 7. We have our G sharp minor triad. That's our melodic triad. We have A major. That's our tension triad. G sharp minor, A major. So let's try. Let's see what happens if we hit this D sharp note and think of this like it's almost, imagine like a saxophone player or trumpet player is playing this while we do our dyads moving around underneath it. So we're going to have like a pedaled static melody note with inner voice movement underneath it. The hardest part about this is the physicality of getting those notes, that melody note, to ring out and not get cut off. We don't want to lose it. Like, that does us no good. It has to ring out the whole time while the other notes are moving. Did you hear it cut off at the end? It, like, that annoys the piss out of me. That was just a slip up of my finger, right? I still work on all these techniques all the time. Also, we're trying to make it sound like something that's alive, like almost like there's 3 different instruments, 3 different voices. We have the bass, we have the melody, and then we have the inner voices, which could all be on one instrument, or it could even be 2 different instruments. If this were a choir, or a group with 4 singers, you could have somebody sing this low note, you could have somebody sing this note, and then you could have, and you could have, so now I'm adding more dyads. Oh, keep wanting to hit that G sharp major. The G sharp major triad gives us E major 7 augmented, which is a super hip sound, but not the one we're studying this month. We just want the natural 5th, basic major 7 right now. I just played a B note. That's root 5th, 1 5, right? Remember a minute ago I talked about thinking of it as like a bass player or a bass singer, middle voices in a melody. So now I'm just giving the bass player a little bit more of a realistic role. So the trick to practicing this technique for me is just to practice moving around within a position and changing the melody note slowly, gradually. So I might start with this note. I'm looking at this shape, right? E, G sharp, B, D sharp, 7th fret, 6th fret, 4th fret, 4th fret. So I'm going to start with this as my melody note. And just see how much movement I can create underneath that melody note in this position. Can I get down? So that's kind of taking me a little bit. I'm not here anymore. Now I'm down here in this position, but the melody note's still there. So I'm gonna use it. Now here the melody and the top voice of the dyad are playing the same pitch. That's fine with me. I don't mind that so much. Okay. Now I'm going to try this with the E note on top. That E note, I'm only using notes from one of the two triads. I mean, you could do this with any note of the E major scale, but since we're talking about triad pairs, let's stick with triad pairs. So same dyads, but my melody note's different now. So notice I'm playing a very simple melody. That's it. And I'm just playing over one chord, but there's a ridiculous amount of movement happening and colors and tension and dissonance. Right, what if I go up to the next melody note? If I go up to F sharp, now I can reach this next dyad. I can get, that's from A major. It's the middle two strings, 9th fret, 11th fret. Can't quite reach that. So we'll stick with this. Let's see how many dyads I can find and squeeze in underneath this. Here, 1 second. These lower ones are getting a little bit too muddy against the vamp. Now, I usually wouldn't do a huge run like this, right? This is just kind of practicing. It's like running a scale. Like, it's important to practice running the scale, but we rarely want to actually play long note for note scale runs. Like, they have their place, but it can get a little tiresome if that's all we're doing. So I'm much more likely to do 2 or 3 back and forth, and then maybe jump and add something else in. Like, I want it to be more of a story. Nick, cool stuff. It could be very interesting to comp in a way like this, give space for the solo singer. Yeah, totally. And in fact, we were talking just recently when McCoy Tyner died, we were talking about how he does exactly this triad pair during his, during the My Favorite Things recording. Like literally, he uses this exactly. It's the same exact thing we're talking about doing. We're just trying to figure out ways to get that happening on the guitar, because totally different ball game when you have two hands with 10 fingers versus one hand with 4 fingers and maybe a thumb and some bars. But yeah, very cool way to come. That's why I like to think of triad pairs almost more in terms of their harmonic potential versus melodic. Melodically, they're okay. I guess I use them a little bit here and there, but my ear doesn't gravitate towards the sound of those big, long, extensive runs. Try. Like I want to hear melody. I want to hear phrases. But harmonically, I think they are great for harmony. Sean, I'm glad you think so, because I'm sticking with this topic mainly because you asked for this, and I'm totally happy to do it because I love this stuff and we don't talk about triad pairs too much. Nick, the melody note I'm using at the moment is F sharp, which is not in either of these triads, but it is in the E major scale. So totally allowable. We have a lot of musicians on here today. Some, many, all of you may be aware that we very often hear people talk about the 11 or the 4 of a major chord as sort of an avoid note. Like, don't play the 4, don't play the 11, make it a sharp 11, or leave it out altogether. I don't think that's good advice. I don't think we should be avoiding that note. It's a fantastic note. It's just important to keep it in perspective that not all notes are democratically equal. Like I said earlier, there is a dictatorship to this stuff. Like, this is an authoritarian fascist system, and that 4 has a function in this sonic society. Like, it plays a role. It shouldn't be left out, but it's very important to understand that it is a tension note. It wants to move desperately. And if you notice, 50% of what I'm playing is based on the A major triad. So not only am I not avoiding the A note, I'm actually creating the entire sense of tension that I'm using here by building a full-blown triadic structure on the 4 of the chord. But the tension wants to move. That's A, C sharp, F sharp. I'm playing that over an E major 7. But as long as my ear understands that it wants to move, there's an A note. Now I'm going to move up to the next note, G sharp. okay voicing for E major 7 if you're following by the book. E, A, G sharp. But because we're understanding it, learning it, executing it from the standpoint of tension, resolution. It can be part of our vocabulary. Not in a very out or aggressive or dissonant way. It's like hyper melodic. Right? This is the same idea. Remember, I said I don't usually do these big, long, dyadic runs. I like to try and stick to 2 or 3, and this is a perfect example. There's a lot of reasons why. One of them is just because I think music tends to exist in small bites, like little chunks of things that we can, as listeners, take in and enjoy, versus like chaotic, nonstop, in your face, notes, chords everywhere all the time with no rests and no breaks. But the other reason, the other benefit of playing that way, practicing it that way, is that it allows us to then start to add changes to the melody note. I sat on that A natural note for a lot longer that time. Did you guys catch that? So I'm really like, once we get used to the tension resolution and know how to control it, then we can take hold of the tension and really stretch it out, because we're in control of it. If you don't know how to hear it first, you can't control it. If you don't know how to control it, you can't put it out there and twist it, stretch it out and twist it and force people to sit in something that's a little bit unpleasant, but then you reward them for it. You know what I mean? Like, think about great movies that do that, where like you have no idea what's happening. You're like stuck in this very uncomfortable place on the edge of your seat, but then the plot kind of all comes together, and it's like a reward. It's like a treat for putting up with the director's desire to mess with you. That's basically what it is. I'm just messing with everyone's ear in a respect. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. If you don't do this from a place of love and compassion and respect for the listener, for the music, for the melody and the harmony, then it can become a little bit too much. It can become very egoic, and it can be a little hard to listen to. Like, it's like complexity for the sake of complexity versus trying to do something fun and enjoyable for people who are listening. All right, I feel like I missed some comments in here. Jocelyn, you're welcome. David, Sonic Society would be a cool band name. Yeah. Glenn, absolutely great harmonic device. Melodic TPs need more approach tones. I'm not sure what melodic TP is. Triad, something maybe. Melodic TPs need more approach tones and chromaticism to create more interesting lines. Yes, we can get into that, and that's certainly talked about. And maybe, we still have about an hour, so I might even get into some of that a little bit. But right now, I'm just isolating out the concept of a triad pair and seeing how much juice we can squeeze out of it, because it is a fantastic concept, but too often we, as musicians, as humans, we learn a concept kind of intellectually. We learn like the superficial application of it, and then we think we understand it, and we don't dive deep into it to see how far down the rabbit hole goes. Triad pair, maybe that makes sense. The melodic triad pair, yeah. So we can talk about that. In fact, maybe I'll start adding triad pairs. Yeah, cool, Glenn, thanks. I don't know how I didn't catch that. Probably because I'm only halfway through my coffee for the morning. So yes, if we get time, I'll try and get into some of that stuff as well. Because this is at this point, we're just talking about harmony anyways. We haven't really gotten into melody, even though I am hinting at the idea of melody by adding that note on top. I still think of this as primarily a harmonic device. Justin, I've heard that the 4 in major and the 6 in minor are void notes, but the only explanation offered is that it's tradition. I like the sound, but wonder why it's tradition. I don't know. I don't want to get into speculation. There's lots of things that are tradition that are great to follow, and there's lots of things in tradition that are important to assess and to make decisions about. I think at the end of the day, the tradition should be used as a really strong starting point for developing our ear. And then as our ear starts to develop, we should start using our ear to make the choices about what we do and don't want to play. So I consider myself extremely lucky, as weird as this sounds, I consider myself extremely lucky that after graduating my master's degree, having played and studied with all these unreal musicians, guys that I, worshipped for most of my life, after I went through all that, as some of you might know who are in the study group and know me, I came down with some pretty serious medical issues, had to stop playing for a couple of years and forgot how to play and had to relearn. Fortunately, I had all the memory up here and all the experience and the passion, but my hands, my muscle memory was gone. So I had to literally reconstruct the whole thing. And as painful and challenging as that was, and honestly still is, because I am still going through that process and I will for the rest of my life, it was an amazing opportunity for me, Justin, in that it taught me to realize that my ear, I love tradition. You guys who know me, like, we could hang out over coffee all day and I will talk about theory and tradition and history with you guys. But at the end of it, I'm going to go home and I'm going to turn my ears on and I'm just going to listen. Like, I'm going to pick one note and I'm just going to sit with that note for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour, and just listen and understand like what it is that it does in my ear and in my heart in different situations. Like, how does a specific note feel to me? Not what did my teacher in 8th grade music theory tell me I'm supposed to do with it. I frankly I don't give a shit. I mean, you have to know that stuff. It's so important. I very much don't, there's that Charlie Parker quote, I never remember it verbatim, learn your scales, your theory and your scales, and then forget them. I just disagree. It's the first half I agree with. Learn your scales and your theories. I disagree that it's about forgetting it. I think it's about transcending it. It's not like leaving it behind. It's just climbing up on top of it. Like, and that happens very naturally. Like, it's not something you try and do. You get to a point where you realize that you're just like a little kid in a sandbox. Like, you're just playing with stuff. You know what I mean? Like, don't leave the sandbox. Like, the sandbox is great. Why would you want to leave it? But understand that you get to make the rules. But it's ultimately this that makes the rules, right? If it's me, Jordan, then it's just ego. Then I'm just trying. Versus if I just sit and listen, and then the notes, literally, as weird as it sounds, the notes will tell you what's right. And then we have to act as sort of a servant remember I talked about that this whole thing is not a democracy. It's like an authoritative fascist dictatorship. And I am at the bottom of that totem pole. Like, it's my job simply to understand that authoritative society and to serve it so that it can take care of what it wants to take care of. And the way my ear hears it might be different than some or all of you. I don't know. I think there is an objective reality to tension and resolution. That's my personal feeling. We can argue about it all day over coffee if you guys want, but I think it's undeniable. Like, I can force any of you to hear the E note over this E major 7 as unresolved because it's not a resolution note. It's a harmonic chord tone. It's not a melodic stable note. Did you hear that? Even down here in the lower register, that note is an E note over the low 6th string. E wants to pull down to D sharp. You can argue all you want with me, but there's, like, you can give me white powder and tell me it's sugar, but if I taste salt when I put it in my mouth, then I know you're lying to me. Like, you can't convince me that you're not lying. You can put it in a box that says otherwise, but I know the taste of salt and the taste of sugar because I take the time to experience it. And that's what I want to do with my ear. So that's a very long-winded way, Justin, of saying that tradition is a great way to get started understanding things and developing the ear, tasting different flavors. But at a certain point, we just have to learn to trust our ear and make personal choices about it, which is why I feel very grateful that I had to relearn to play, because I decided at that point that I didn't want to do it the traditional way and that I just wanted to trust myself and let my ear lead it, which is kind of where a lot of these ideas came from. It was like, I was so bored with all the stuff I used to play, like triad pairs, which I did for too many years. So then when I came back to the idea of it to relearn it, I was like, well, what else is possible? I don't have all the answers to it. You guys can probably figure out uses for it that I will never dream of. These are a couple of the outside the box ideas that I came up with when I was dreaming of new ways of using them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you want my opinion, as far as the 4 goes, it's not an avoid note. It's a tension note. As long as you understand tension, you can use it. And even if you just think I'm full of shit and it's just my opinion, look at tunes, analyze the melody of tunes, and you will see the 4 being used over major chords. B flat major. B flat chord, B flat major chord. The melody is E flat. And what does the E flat do? It does what every 4 wants to do. It resolves down to the 3. Right? When it goes to the F major chord, check out the melody. It's an F major chord. The melody is B flat, again, resolving down to A. 4 down to 3. It's not an avoid note. It's in the music. Listen to great music. Trust your ear. As far as the 6 in minor, I'm not sure if you meant the natural 6 versus the flat 6. Neither of them are avoid notes. Don't ever avoid any note. There's always a way to use a note within that hierarchy of this authoritarian society. There's always a way that all 12 notes can be used. It's not about intellectually, egoically forcing complicated ideas to make them be present. It's about getting to know what function they serve in the music and developing your ear to hear it, and then developing your muscle memory to execute it. I feel like I'm going a little bit too deep into our open office hours culture. Usually the group class, this is more about sort of lecture style and me just playing examples of how I practice, but it's a great question and I sort of brought it up, so I wanted to hit that. Kurt, thank you. Ray, triad pair, yeah. Glenn, triad pair, yes. John, David, and these triad pairs make the 6-note bebop scale, correct? Yes, you are correct. And we still have some time, so I might stick with harmony and leave melody alone for today, because I kind of want to get into creating some more movement by adding some of our other concepts to the triad pair, the quadro-tonic pair, liquid harmony, 3-note quadro-tonic voicings, all that stuff. I might get to some of that today. I'm not sure. Gonna see how this plays out. But yes, you're right. So our 6-note melodic triad bebop scale, not the 9 or the 12-note, is made up of G sharp minor triad, A major triad put together. Right, so every other note, that's why I consider it a bebop scale, even though it only has 6 notes. Every other note is a stable note versus every other note is a tension note. Let's see, what else am I missing? And then I'm going to jump back to this. Do you think we're living in a new era where feeling is returning over? That's a good question. I think both are present, virtuosity versus feeling. I think that they're always both present in every era. I think it does oscillate a little bit through generations as to which one becomes more popular. But I think it just goes back and forth. I mean, Frizzell, he's been out there for God knows how many years doing his thing, versus Matheny. And then even trying to separate them out as two completely separate things. Like Matheny, super virtuosic, but that dude knows how to express some feeling. Like, you know, he's very deep. He's one of the musicians that really knows how to like balance the two really beautifully. Some people take one or the other to very far extremes. He takes both of them to very far extremes. Glenn, yeah, you're welcome. Again, this is Glenn was saying he appreciated keeping this class open, and you are welcome. Usually these classes we do in the study group for the premium members, we have 2 open office hours every month, which is basically just conversational. Like people get to ask questions, I try to answer them and sometimes play examples. And then we do 2 open office hours, and then we do 2 group classes. This is one of our group classes. Usually I don't answer this many questions, but I'm just in a talkative mood today, I guess. But the group classes are more like we take the monthly material we're studying and I pick a topic of it and dig really deep. We have a intro level group class, which usually doesn't get as challenging as this. And then we have the advanced group class, which is what we're doing today. Usually those are closed only to our premium members, which is not free. The standard membership is free, premium isn't. But with the pandemic going on and the insanity of the world and everybody being stuck at home, I just thought it would be a lot of fun to, you know, connect with more people today and share some ideas that might inspire courses at whatever price that you're comfortable paying. But also I'm putting 50% of any of the profits that come in from those coupon codes I'm using to help musicians. Fortunately, I feel really lucky. I've been able to reach out to about 7, maybe 8 people so far and offer little bits of help to people who've just lost all their income these days. I feel very lucky that I moved online a couple months ago when I got sick and couldn't perform anymore. I'm in a little bit better of a situation than a lot of other players are right now. So trying to help people out and, you know, do the best we can as we get through this. So if you're in standard or just watching this on YouTube in the general public and you look down below the video, you can find those links and coupon codes. But I'm glad that we got to connect. So thanks for hanging. Jocelyn, can we have access to that nice lesson later on? I'm not sure what lesson you're asking about, so let me know. Rogelio, hey, what's up, man? Watching again from work, wanted to know what you think about playing the triads 2 notes on one string, 1 note next string, similar to the sweeping technique in order to play faster. Oh, yeah. I mean, all that kind of stuff, like that's the physicality of the instrument, right? And that stuff's important. It comes to me after the understanding and the hearing, right? And understand, like, feeling. We have to develop muscle memory to execute. We have to have technique. And first, kind of the 3 primary elements of like the musician human being, but we do need a physical body to play. And we have, you know, whether it's a saxophone or a trumpet or a piano or a guitar, like we have to execute. So 2 notes per string is cool. Like the 2-1 thing is great, or just sweeping across 3 strings is great. I try not to tell people how to play physically, like the technique, because if you've been playing for 20 years and you have something that works for you, I'm not going to mess that up. Like any opinion I have on that is only going to mess with your comfort level. So go like an actual sweep picking. That's great. Whatever works, go with it. All right, a couple more comments and then we'll get back to some playing. Sergio, oh, must leave now. Bummer. Thanks for another great lesson. Yeah, you're welcome. Come back when you're done. This will be in the tonality vault. So if you want to watch the second half, you can come back whenever you want. David, I have to go as well. Oh man, you guys are dropping like flies on me. Come on, musicians. What do you got to do? Nobody's working. I'm just kidding. Yeah, thank you, David. You stay safe as well. Hope you and the family are doing okay. David got to catch Peter Bernstein at the Village Vanguard during the last week before it shut down, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little angry about it because I didn't get to go, and it would have been a nice way to wrap up normal life before getting stuck in an apartment for who knows how long. But jealousy aside, let's play some music. So where did we leave off? We were doing simple melody over moving dyads. So let's do. We have some non-members with us today who probably have never heard the word quadro-tonic, let alone understand the concept of the 3-note quadro-tonic voicings. I was going to talk about that today, but I might not because I don't want to confuse everybody and I don't want to spend half of the rest of this lesson trying to explain what that's all about. So instead of doing that, let's... I want to try and practice like a chord scale using these 2 triads. But for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about here, a quadro-tonic is a triad with 1 tension note added to it. Okay, I'm going to play you a quick example and then I'm just going to jump in. If this goes way over your head, that's totally fine. It's to be expected. It's not a concept you will have ever worked on from a theory book. Or learned in a jazz improv class, but it's a really super helpful, important approach or concept we have in melodic triads. It's a quadro-tonic. 3 stable notes, 1 tension note. The primary quadro-tonic for E major 7 is G sharp minor, tension 4. So I'm adding the 4 of G sharp minor as a tension note against that triad. So that's G sharp minor. And that's G sharp minor with tension 4, the C sharp note. In fact, let me go ahead and get a little bit of a loop set up. You hear how it wants to move? It should sound almost like the blues, like a blues scale a little bit. Can you feel that tension? I was like letting us all stew in it for a second. So now it just sounds like really simple phrases. It's not bebop at this point. We can use this over bebop tunes, but it's just kind of like old school Great American Songbook, bluesy lyrical phrases. And so it's almost a G sharp minor pentatonic scale, but it's missing a note. And one quick point before we get into playing chords here is anytime in melodic triads, anytime we have a minor triad with a tension 4, we also have tension sharp 4, right? This little evil twin over here that's always allowed to get involved. Okay, and if you're new with us and you haven't hung with us for a while, you might not realize quite yet, as smooth as that sounds in this context, that's the flat 7. G sharp, B, D sharp. I'm sorry. B sharp, C sharp, D natural over an E major 7. So I'm using the flat 7 over a major 7 chord, but it doesn't sound like an out note. It sounds like the blues. Now, those of you who have already checked out the PDF for this month, you might know that our tension triad is A major, our tension quadro-tonic, A major, tension 6. That was A major with an F sharp note added. Resolving back into G sharp minor. Hear how clear the tension resolution is. Tension resolution. Yeah, it sounds nice, right, Glenn? Can you hear that little sidestep into tension? I'm not playing out. I'm not playing nonsense. I'm just using the authoritarian nature of this melodic triad system, of this tonality. G sharp minor is the dictator. G sharp is the dictator. The 3rd and 5th of G sharp minor are the, like the vice chancellor or whatever. We have our primary tension note. Then we have this alternative quadro-tonic, this A major triad, and it has its own thing, but it's serving the greater good of G sharp minor. So we can play out and get some funky sounds with it, but it's still there to serve the greater good. It's like an internal dominant chord without substituting anything. I'm not actually substituting an A major chord in place. I'm just going for triad, for tension. That's it. Okay, so this is the melodic of quadro-tonic pairs. So that's a triad with an extra tension note, and then I'm doing 2 of them. So instead of triad pairs, we have quadro-tonic pairs. Now, a good way to get started with this for harmony, not for melody, is to play through the triad pair, but every time we hit the downbeat with the triad on it, we're going to alter one of the notes. Maybe I just had a realization that I probably should have introduced a different topic first, but that's okay. Because there's other ways we could have used straight triad pairs without adding this extra note. But this is fun stuff and creates a lot of really interesting inner voice movement. So we're using G sharp minor and A major. But every time I play one of those triads, I'm going to alter one of the notes to be that tension note, and then I'm going to resolve the tension note back into it. So bear with me if that makes 0 sense. Every time I play G sharp minor, I'm going to take the third of G sharp minor, the B natural note, and I'm going to move it up to tension 4. So I'm actually going to play G sharp minor, but it's not minor. It's like a sus4. And then I'm going to resolve that one note down. I'm going to let the other 2 notes ring out. It's easier to hear and see this an octave down. So here's G sharp minor. Here's the third. I'm going to move it up a whole step to tension 4. And then I'm going to release it while the other 2 notes are still ringing out. Try and do that on every inversion of G sharp minor. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing for the A major, the tension triad, except it's not tension 4, it's tension 6. So A major triad, but I'm going to have the F sharp note in place of the E. So instead of the 5th, 1, 3, 5, I'm going to play 1, 3, 6, but then I'm going to resolve that 6 back down to the 5th. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through this just like I would with basic triad pairs. Except I'm not going to play basic triad pairs, I'm going to play quadro-tonic pairs. Shell voicing. Root, major 7, major 3rd. Sorry. Okay. Sounds like a ton is happening, and there is a ton happening. But at the end of the day, it's still 90% just triad pairs. But we're adding our quadro-tonic to it. Okay. So let's see what happens if we try to get this into a position. Like, let's just look at our root 5 shell voicing. Right, the E note's on the 5th string, root, 3rd, major 7. So right off the bat, let's just find the harmonic quadro-tonic of the melodic triad. So just G sharp minor with that tension 4. versus the upper structure stuff that's happening on top. For a while, I'm just using our B13 flat 9. Now, what if we drop this inversion down to here, this G sharp minor? Drop it down. Can we drop it down again without getting too crunchy? How about just down here? Oh, did I skip one? Let's play there. There it is. So again, we could do big, long chord scale runs, but musically this stuff doesn't usually show up as long scale runs, chord scale runs. Like it can, and it has its place, but generally when we're really trying to create something lyrical and emotional and musical, it happens in little tidbits. So let's try this real quick. So it's G sharp minor tension 4 up to A major tension 6, which looks like an F sharp minor triad, except the F sharp resolves down to E. Yeah. So now I'm descending. Before I was moving up. Now I'm moving down to A major. And then resolving down to the G sharp below that. All of a sudden it's like post-bop Bill Evans pianistic major, tension 6. Right, that's our quadro-tonic pair. What if we rotate? We talked about the four directions last time when we were doing like bebop chromatic stuff. We were started, for those of you who were hanging with us during, and we were doing up, up, down, down, up, down, and down, up. So right now everything is down, 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 down. Right, the inner voice movement. Which is plenty to create some cool stuff. But what if we trade it back and forth? What if we change directions? So now there's going to be like lines going like this inside of the chord movement. It's not really chord movement. The chord is staying the same. It's all E major 7, but we're creating waves of harmonic movement of tension and resolution inside of it. And we can get another wave that's moving at a different tempo. So now I'm going from the G sharp minor triad, I'm moving the third up to the 4 instead of resolving down. Okay, it gives a whole different sensation to it. The whole thing is descending. The triads are moving down, but now there's this like little snake that's kind of going up and down inside of it. So again, let's break off one tiny little movement and just try it. In fact, maybe what we'll do since we're nearing the end is I'll break off one movement just with 2 or 3 quadro-tonics and then try and move that through the circle of fifths just to make sure that I'm getting comfortable seeing this geometry in all 12 of my keys. Before I do that, let's see, did I miss, looks like some comments are up here. Kurt, great, easy to understand and inspiring triad pair presentation today. Awesome, man, I'm glad you dig it. You know, I try and cram as many ideas as I can into the PDF, but as I always remind everybody, like the intellectual understanding, the ideas, the academic stuff is all great. You got to know it. But at the end of the day, the most important part of music is like the human being behind the theory, behind the instrument. Like we have to learn to understand that stuff in the ear and bring a sense of creativity to it and like get it off the page. It's not enough to just be able to like employ a technique. Like we want to understand, why does that technique work? What does it sound like? How does it make us feel? How can we execute it? How can we use it to tell stories? And that's what I love about these group classes, is like it gives me a chance to take the stuff that you already have. Music is like dancing about architecture. Like, good to talk about it. We need to talk about it, but it's so important to just try and get down to the bare fundamentals and to hear it and to think about it from the sonic perspective and employ it. Glenn, yeah, I think I commented on that earlier, the blues scale. Kurt, you got to split. No worries, man. Hope you're feeling well. Stay healthy. We'll talk again soon. I want to hear how your Skype lessons are going. Okay, so which direction was I doing for which? So let's try this. We're gonna do this G sharp minor triad up here, and we're gonna try moving the third of the triad up to the tension 4. And then when we go up to the A major triad, we'll do the tension 6 down to the 5. So it looks like F sharp minor triad, but that F sharp is gonna resolve down to E. It's a tension note. And because I'm just kind of a dick sometimes, I'm going to bring that left-hand bass player back into the picture, and we're going to do a little 5-1. So this is not, I'm not thinking B7 here. You could substitute a B7 in, but I'm just thinking right, just 1-5-1, just like super simple, like the most basic role of a bass player, even in, you know, rock and blues and funk and bluegrass, like beyond jazz. But we do it in jazz also, obviously. Go listen to Joe Beam. trick to making this sound musical is to make sure that the other two notes of the triad that aren't moving are ringing out the whole time while that one note moves. Right? These notes are staying present. They're not getting cut off, and I'm not replucking them. So this is about as basic an application of this technique, which is an advanced technique. But this is about as basic as we can get with it. It's just two of them. I'm not even adding like a third one in. We could add we could resolve up if we wanted to, but we're not going to do that. We're going to stick with this. I'm going to see if I can just move this through the circle of fifths. So here's E major 7. Adding the little 5-1 at the end. Root notes, bass notes. It's not a 5 chord. I'm just playing 5-1. B minor to E7, which brings me to A. Okay, right? C sharp minor. I'm not actually thinking about the names of the triads I'm playing at this point. It's just geometry. It's just a puzzle, a visual riddle. But I can tell you, now that I'm looking at it, it's C sharp minor, tension 4, D major, tension 6. Next, I need to get to D major. So I'm going to go to A dominant. D dominant brings me to G major. Okay. G dominant brings me to C major. What key did we start in? Oh, did we start in E? Yeah, we started in E. A lot of times I start my circle of fifths in C. So when I got to C, I was like, there's no way I already finished the circle of fifths. That's an octave of the fifth. I don't know if you guys heard that. Again, it's just kind of digging a little bit deeper, trying to add a little bit more bass player role into what I'm doing here. Can I play this down here? I think I can. next is G flat. B. Now what I'm doing, I just changed this a little bit. Instead of playing the tension quadrotonic and then playing the bass notes, the 5-5-1. Instead of doing that, what I just started doing was playing that higher octave 5 of the bass player at the same time as the tension quadrotonic in my quote unquote right hand. So I'm getting the left and right hand moving together now. For those of you who don't hang with me often and have no idea what I'm talking about, I have sort of an imaginary piano player in my head that I'm trying to translate into guitar. So they have a left hand, a right hand, a harmony, and a melody. Basic chord, melodic triad. So I'm playing the harmonic quadrotonic, but I'm putting the fifth of the chord, of the B major chord, underneath it at the same time. Now I'm back to E major. We've now gotten to the point where this has, like, nobody in their right mind would hear this and be like, you're just using triads. Like, that's boring. You know, play something more interesting. Let me hear a drop 2 chord. Like, this is so far beyond what most of us assume is possible with triads that it's not recognizable anymore. For those of you who've been hanging with me all the way through this, hopefully you can see that it all started from just a basic G minor triad. Then I added the A major triad. That gives us our melodic triad pair for major 7, for E major 7. Then we started moving around with it. Then we added the dyad movement, right? Just by letting one note go. Then we added a melody on top and kept the dyad movement. Then we added the 4th note, and now we have quadrotonic pairs, right? I'm still really just playing the triads. I'm just having a little grace note, a little ghost in the system. Is that what it's called? Ghost in the system? Just like a little problem area. I'm intentionally inserting a tension note because I know it's going to want to move. It's going to create action, which is going to want to move and resolve. Through what's effectively a triad pair, like it's almost like a chord scale, but it has inner voice movement happening inside. The last thing I'll say, because we're only about 5 minutes left, Ghost in the Machine. That's it. Thank you. Appreciate that, Glenn. The last thing I'll say about this is let's quickly, very quickly, because we only have about 5 minutes left, go back to our dyads. So we're going to step back to what we were talking about like 30 or 45 minutes ago, playing the dyads. But now, anytime where I can hit one of these tension notes, I'm going to. So now it's not going to be 3 notes. We're back down to 2 notes. So it's already not going to sound like triad pairs. And on top of that, we're going to have inner voice movement where the 2 lines, it's going to sound like 2 completely different voices because they're not always going to be moving at the same pace. Check this out. Let's start simple. Let's just be G sharp minor is just always G sharp minor. A major, we're going to add the tension 6 to when we see it. The tension 6 on the All About Gravity on the A major is from the secondary tension layer in the PDF. You got it. It's the tension layer. It's the tension quadro-tonic. A major, tension 6. Okay, I'm not playing the 5th of A major here. This is the root 3rd, so I'm not going to add the tension note in. But that time, when I played this A major, 10th fret, 9th fret, that's the root in the 5th. So because the 5th is present, I'm going to play the 6th first, and then resolve. So one voice is just holding, and the other voice is moving. Again, when I play this A major, there's an E note in it. That's the 5th. So I'm going to use my tension note, F sharp. I'll do the same thing ascending. But everything has a purpose. The G sharp minor triad notes are our stable resolution notes. The A major notes, A, C sharp, E, are our tension notes. And then the F sharp note is a tension note within tension. So it's creating movement inside of the tension triad, which then right, that's F sharp resolving down to E with the C sharp note there because it's an A major triad, tension 6. And notice I'm holding the C sharp note while the F sharp and E notes move. All that movement is happening because of triad pairs. It doesn't sound, we're not doing right. By all means, shed that stuff if you're not comfortable enough with the arpeggiated versions of triads. Like, it's a good thing to mess with, but it just always sounds the same. Like every person there's no way not to play it the same way. Like, every person plays it the same way. It's usually the same couple of triads, and it always comes across with that same quality. Like, imagine going to a museum and every painting, regardless of what time period it was painted in and who painted it, imagine all of them looked the same. Like, how much would it really grab your attention? Like, you might enjoy the aesthetic of the whole museum, but you're never going to gravitate towards one painting and be like, oh my God, I have to Google this artist. Who is this? What is this? What was going through their brain when they painted this? What were they going through in life? That's the feeling I get when I hear triad pairs the traditional way they're played, which is cool. Like, it's a beautiful sound, but it's just always the same beautiful sound. Versus in the last 2 hours, we've talked about 4 or 5 completely different ways of using triad pairs that get us way outside the box and have nothing to do with the traditional sound, even though it's the same shapes. I'm looking at the same shapes as this. If I can still play these, I never practice it anymore. But there's so much potential there. So much potential. So I would encourage you guys, I mean, especially if you're stuck at home, we got time. Take it in baby steps. That's the whole point of these group classes, is to get away from the theory that I talk about in the monthly material and off of the pages of the PDF, and actually, how do we take tiny little baby steps to start inching our way deeper into this crazy, endless world of triads. There's so much that's possible. And this is all just with one basic tonality, just G sharp minor over the E major chord. Right? Before I kept messing up and playing G sharp major, we could go through this whole process again with G sharp major triad, which would give us major 7 augmented. And then we would have a whole new set of same concepts, same principles, same ideas. Melodic triad, tension triad, right? Quadro-tonics, dyads, harmonic quadro-tonics, like all the exact same ideas for creating tension and resolution and movement. But it would be a whole new set of sounds using the exact same shapes, but they're all going to look different because they're going to be placed differently because I'm using G sharp major. That really like tense note, that's E over E major 7. And this note that feels like home is G sharp major. That's E. But it's G sharp major. We could do this with a B major triad. Those of you who are already in the group know all this stuff, but since we have some folks on YouTube who are not part of our study group, I just want to point out, like, we can do all this with any triad that works over E major. Now this B note feels like melodic note, like the root note of the melody. And that note, that's E. Again, it's not stable. It doesn't want to stay put. That's E resolving down to D sharp because I'm using the B major triad. So now we have a new triad pair, a new quadro-tonic pair. We could do E flat major or D sharp, which gives us the sharp 11 and the sharp 9. Now the E note sounds like Phrygian over E major 7. It's like Phrygian major. The E note sounds like the flat 2 of a scale. So then the triad pair would be E flat or D sharp is your melodic triad. E natural is the tension triad. The E natural triad is the tension triad over an E major 7 chord. Like, let that soak in for a minute. That is wacky. That note that you just heard is E over E major 7. So for those of you who are just watching us on YouTube and have no idea that we even existed as of an hour or two ago, that's some of the fun that I like to have. I like to just explore stuff. That's what we do in the study group. If you're on YouTube or in the standard membership and you want to come hang with us in premium for a little while, I don't know how long I'm going to run it. I'm kind of keeping an eye on this pandemic and musicians and income, and it'll probably be available for at least a few more weeks, if not another month or two. As things settle down, I'm going to get rid of this, but it's pay what you want for the first month. After the first month, it goes back to normal. But if you are brand new to us on YouTube and you want to just come check us out, you can do that. Or you can join our standard membership, which is free. If you're in the standard membership and you want to check out premium, you can do it. Once you sign up, you can cancel anytime you want. If you signed up today and canceled tomorrow, you'd still get the first full month. Like, it just lets you maintain access through the end of that billing cycle, and then you wouldn't get billed again once you canceled, and you would lose access a month later. So if you want to do that, that's available to you guys. If you're in standard, you can also check that email that I sent out that has the coupon codes for like boot camp and Skype lessons and stuff like that. And remember, not only do you get to pay what you want and get some cool stuff, either free or very cheap, but half the money that is brought in, if you don't do the 100% off, which is available for some things, if you do actually choose to pay some money for, which is up to you, 50% of that I am putting towards funds to try and help some musicians who are hurting pretty bad at the moment. I'm a little worried in New York City that we're going to lose some of our venues because they're already struggling to get by. And, I don't know how long, the rents here are just absurd. I don't know how long some of the venues are going to last without being able to pay bills, which I'm glad I'm just spitballing out loud, because it has me thinking that maybe it's worth not just, I might take some of this money. I'm trying to help musicians, but I might reach out to some of the venue owners and see if we can help them pay their bills while they're shut down, so that there are still venues for musicians to play at when the city opens back up, because that would be, it's already bad enough to lose gigs for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. But if the venue's shut down, then even once everything opens back up, there's nowhere to play anymore. So if you want to help the music scene and get some cool stuff, feel free to take advantage of the pay what you want. I don't know how long I'm going to keep it available for, but it's currently available. Let's see, Glenn, since we're reaching the end, and I just want to say thank you. I really enjoyed this presentation. Something new to work on. One question: cycle fifth is moving down in fifths. Yes, you can move down in fifths or up in fifths, but they're both great. But when you go down in fifths, you're essentially replicating the standard movement that's seen in 90% of jazz. 5-1, that's moving down in fifths. 2-5-1, that's moving down in fifths. 6-2-5-1, that's moving down. Like all of those, if you just look at the root movement, the bass movement, like if we're in the key of C, G down a perfect fifth is C. That's 5-1. If we start on G, if we go a fifth above that, we get D. That's 2. Down a fifth is 5. Down a fifth is 1. If we go up a fifth above D, we get A. That's 6-2-5-1. We usually don't play it physically always descending like that. It's usually, oscillating between up and down movement, 6-2-5-1, but it's still the pitch, the keys are still moving down in fifths. If we go another fifth, if we start on, let's say, E, that's 3-6-2-5-1. That's all down in fifths. If you go up in fifths, then you get C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp, D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, F, C. So they'll still both take you all the way through the octave, but descending is absolutely hands down. If you're interested in jazz, I think you were the one, Glenn, who was talking about leading tones, enclosures, bebop, stuff like that. So if you're into that, definitely start and master descending fifths first, because that's what the entire harmonic language of jazz is built on, and the melodic language too, because it's all part of the same system. And then if you want to get kind of more out and modern and hip, then you can flip it backwards and try it the other direction, but descending for sure. Thanks for hanging with us. It was nice crossing paths. Hit me up if you have questions or need anything. Stephen, glad you enjoyed it. This was a fun one, guys. I had a lot of fun doing this. It was nice to have human contact ish. So stay sane, stay healthy. Sean, you're welcome. So much great stuff today. Rewatch and digest these things. Yeah. For those of you who are in premium, you guys already know this will be archived in the Tonality Vault. If you're in standard, you usually don't even have access to these classes live. And if you're not in the study group at all, you usually don't have access to any live sessions. But for those of you who are not in premium, our premium members, all of these, we do 2 group classes a month, which are 2 hours each. So it's 4 hours of this every month. Not only is it available live, it's also archived in our member area. So you can always go back and watch. And then we also have 2 hour-long open office hours where it's more conversational, where I just answer questions. I'm not trying to teach anything specifically, just helping clear up issues. So we have 2 of those every month that are also archived. So you can go back. I think we have about 8 months of these types of, like, 6 hours a week of this type of stuff. So come and check us out. You can get the premium group, the premium membership the first month. Like, I think I set it to like 20% off if you want it. So I don't really know why you wouldn't take advantage of it. It's like you're basically stealing it from me, and I'm giving half of that money to another musician. So it'll cost you less than $4, and almost 2 of that is going to go to help somebody who's hurting right now. So cancel anytime, no questions asked. You don't even have to email me. You can just go into your account settings and cancel it. Obviously, I would love to have you guys hang with us. It's way cheaper than Skype lessons. It's way cheaper than grad school. But I know times are tight. So pay what you want, cancel anytime you want. It's basically risk-free. And I'm here to help if you guys need anything. This was a fun one, Ray. It's great seeing you. Hope you're feeling well, staying safe, and all about gravity. You're welcome. Thanks for hanging, guys. Stay well, and more importantly than ever, happy practicing.